All right. Okay, I think we will wait just a couple more minutes and then we can slowly start while everyone else is joining. All right. So, hello and welcome everybody. Very nice to see you all, and I'd like to welcome you to the first in our webinar series, WEConversations, our webinars that are geared towards learning, sharing, and growing all together. Today is an open webinar to everyone, so we are very happy to welcome the WEC members as well as people from outside our ecosystem. We are very happy to see everybody. I just want to remind everyone that today's webinar is going to be recorded, so I hope you're all well and fine with it. And without further ado, I'd like to proceed because we have a jam-packed webinar with a lot of interesting discussions to be held. So, start with, I'd like to invite you to pull out your telephones and scan the QR code so that you can participate in our Slido. And let's test the waters and see, what do you, first of all, think what next year is going to bring us in terms of economy and labor market? Just share your gut feeling with us. Do you think it's going to be a strong rebound? Or would it rather be a limited or muted growth? Or maybe it's going to be no growth? Or is it just hard to tell because the environment is so complicated? So we've got first numbers coming in. All right. Probably limited growth. Okay. I agree, it's hard to tell. I fully agree with you. Okay. So we've got 20 people participating in the Slido. Perfect. So we think it's limited growth. I think we can wait another 30 seconds for everyone to log in and to participate, and then we can move on and see what the OECD suggests. Basically, we have the majority suggesting limited growth, but also a lot of people thinking it's really hard to tell. And then we have some more pessimistic views that it could be zero growth. Well, let's continue. And here you have, unfortunately, impossible to put all countries on one chart, but just to show you that the OECD interim economic outlook suggests that we will have rather muted growth for 2024, lower than this year. And of course, very much depends on the country. Some countries are doing slightly better than others, but actually, well, a special mention for Argentina, who is going through very difficult monetary and financial situation. But other than that, it looks like next year is going to be a little less impressive than this year. That said, we can also see that in terms of inflation, the efforts of central banks around the world have actually borne fruit, and the inflation is being tamed in many countries. And 2024 looks to be a little more favorable than 2023, which is good news, even though it puts a damp on the economic growth. At least we have a stabilization of the situation in terms of purchasing power and in terms of wage growth. And here I'm jumping directly into the next slide, where I want to show you what the OECD suggests about the labor market crunch. Basically, we have the unemployment rates that are still at or near the multi-year lows, and the vacancy rates still high by historical standards. So that creates pressure on the labor market. But on the other hand, we have the number of vacancies that has been steadily falling, and the job growth has slowed as well. At the same time, the quit rates are also reducing. So that creates a little bit of easing in the labor markets. But overall, the situation is still quite tight. I want to show you here the job vacancies per unemployed, the graph on your left. And you see that we have clearly come, at least in some geographic areas, we have come over the hill, and we are now on the easing side. So we have the easing of the situation. And then if you look at the chart on the right, you will see the wage growth, and we see a huge spike towards the second part of 2021 and the beginning of 2022. However, now we see a receding wage growth, which also creates an easing environment for job hiring. So overall, we see that we are going over the hill, but clearly the situation is not as straightforward as we would like it to be, so that we can plan our businesses, plan our activities for the future. Now, without further ado, I'm just going to mention the figures that we collect in-house at the World Employment Confederation, and show you, first of all, the hours worked, so the activity of employment agencies in different countries. And what we see here is that we had a reduction of activity in many countries. So the overall labor market trend has also reflected quite strongly in the activity of the employment agencies. But we see also that this trend is reducing now, and we are going again over this hill of, well, here's more like a trough, of the difficult situation, and hopefully the situation is going to improve, probably slowly, into 2024. From the point of view of turnover of employment agencies, we see that it's been holding up well, not least due to increase in agency workers. But even now, we see this year we had a decline in some countries, which is also a sign of a crunch. But hopefully the situation is going to improve, as we see that the decline is reducing in most countries, and that the situation is going to slowly getting back to positive in 2024. Now, having said all this, I would like to finally introduce our two speakers who are going to give us much more deep insight into the labor markets and staffing world. And the first speaker today is Marco Tucci from Lightcast. Lightcast is our newest partner, our WEC partner. Marco is the vice president of our partner and is leading the business expansion and strategic client relations in Europe. And his expertise is in strategic workforce planning, labor market policies, and evolving trends, for example, green skills. Before joining Lightcast, he had his own advisory company and ran it for 10 years, and which in 2012 joined Tableau, which is a spin-off of the University of Milano Bicocca. Welcome and hello, Marco. I'm going to give you the floor in just a second. I would like to first introduce our second speaker, Adam Pode, who is a senior analyst at Staffing Industry Analyst. And he's been there for a very respectable amount of time, and he has written about staffing industry from A to Z. He knows a lot and is really the very important figure in the research field, and actually he got his first degree from the SOAS University of London. So we are here in a very good company, and without further ado, I'd like to pass the floor to Marco to present his view on the situation in the labor markets and the economy. Please, Marco, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Victoria, for the nice introduction. And hi all, good morning. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you can see it, okay? So, first of all, I will just to recap and to avoid any repetition on what Victoria just said from my starting point is from the OECD Economic Outlook report, the interim report published a few days ago. So as we can see, the global growth is expected to remain weak. Also, if the headline inflation is coming down, but the core inflation remains substantially persistent. But coming to our point of view, what are the impacts on the labor market? So that these general trends have always an impact, a strong impact on the labor market. So the real point is that like us is analyzing especially the labor market using the online job vacancies. Why using the online job vacancies? Because the online job vacancies represents a consequence of microeconomic factors, and analyzing trends on the occupational skills can help us to get some sneak peeks for next years. The main reasons for which we are using online job vacancies in order to analyze the labor market are these three main points. So the online job vacancies are up to date. So it means that companies are always using to publish job posting where they need to hire. So they are very detailed because we can find in the online job vacancies all the requirements in order to access the occupation. So we can find the skills, the experience, the education level, also the working contents. So the place, up to the municipality, the contract type, the sector, the working hours, and so on. And also they are adherent to reality. So we are getting the market terms that are used by companies. This helps us to identify the emerging terminology adopted by the market. And so this is a very important factor for us. As we are observing by our data, by our online job vacancies, is that the online job vacancies confirms the cooling of the economy. But we can also see that from over the past few months, the number of job postings posted online has gradually declined. As you can see in the chart on the left, the US trend is very clear, but also on the chart on the right, you can have an overview of some European economies that they have a similar pattern to. The only thing that, according to our experience in like us, that is important to have in mind that this is a data that is from an all-time high. So yes, the recruitment activity is cooling, but we are arriving from this important point. As you can see, we are observing three main factors, and then we will see during my presentation. So the first important factor, as all of you know, is the talent shortage. So the talent shortage is a very big challenge, according to OECD, according also to the data that we are able to detect analyzing the online job vacancies. We are suffering this situation since a few years in Southern Europe, but we are observing similar situation in the rest of Europe and also in US. Sorry. Okay. Our research identifies the area of the world with the highest risk of talent shortages. In this chart, I don't want to waste your time, but we can see different situations in different worldwide countries. So we can detect that in different countries there is a different situation. Anyway, the talent shortage is a big challenge for everyone. How to solve the talent shortage? Obviously, we can enlarge the talent pool. We can enlarge the talent pool in different ways. First of all, with the skill-based hiring. So, as you know, the skill-based hiring is the tendency of the employers to move away from recruiting based on qualification and job titles towards skills. So this is important because the new way of assessing candidates basing on specific skills a job requires, rather than college degrees or years of experience, this really opened the door to even more talent. So this is a very important fact to take into consideration. The diversity inclusion, we could speak a lot on diversity inclusion, but I wanted to show you only one chart on diversity inclusion, and I'm referring especially to the women employment, because the women employment in our experience, also in my mind, it's a very important pain point to solve in order to close the gender gap. And so we have seen in our data, that, for instance, the benefits are playing an important role in getting all the women into the labor market. Because obviously, we can say obviously there are, but we can observe this fact in the online job vacancies, how there is a positive correlation between the occupation of female and the possibility of having benefits, so parental benefits, flexibility, for instance, the remote working, or some other benefits. Obviously, the travel is a problem we can observe in the online job vacancies, but we can reduce trying to close the gender gap with these benefits. Another important point that we can observe from our data is the green economy and the sustainability. The green economy is a really challenging opportunity according to OECD, but also according to our data. Obviously, the green economy will have important benefit to the health of our planet. It's a very good thing, but we are observing also that we are having, and in our experience, it will have more and more profound impact on the labor market. For instance, just two example, in Europe, we have the European Green Deal, that is one of the 6 pillars of the European Recovery Fund. So the EU European policy Fit for 55 is the goal that the European Union decided to have in order to reduce the net greenhouse gas emission by at least 50% by 2030. So it's really important, but it will have an important impact also in the labor market, on the labor market. Next, we can already observe, also you can see in the chart on the right, that this is having an impact also on the labor market. So we can also understand what are this is only obviously an example, the top 5 green schemes in Germany last year. But the occupation are slightly changing, but we can observe that we have a big potential also in the United States. So also in the United States, the government is investing in initiative to support citizens to adopt some green solution, electric vehicles, heat pumps, and so on. But we can see this effect also on occupation, so the number of workers and the projected 5-year growth for green jobs. So this is an important hot trends that we are seeing in the labor market. And a slide that I particularly love from a personal point of view, this is that the green economy is only a part of a bigger problem of the sustainability. So sustainability, we are observing that sustainability is very important, is becoming more and more important for jobs, but not only for the green jobs and the green occupation and green skills, but there are a lot of traditional occupation that are starting to ask for sustainability skills, because sustainability is a more general has a more general impact at different level of the company's life. So these are a chart in which we can find some example where we can find some specific sustainability skills. Artificial intelligence is a very hot topic, as you know. So AI is rising very fast, but the question is a real fact or is a buzzword? As we can see, the AI share of total postings is really increasing, and so we think that it will be a factor that will disrupt the market in the next year, and the following years. But which are the main trends that we can already observe in the online job vacancy right now and then the following years. In our idea, we can see the adoption. So AI adoption helps the companies in improving their operations, their productivity, and according to the specific economical sector. But we cannot dig into this specific point. But we can also observe that the companies are using AI for having a better focus on customer experiences, so they can improve the customer experience in different sectors, so retail, care, and a lot of services. So we are observing the request of AI skills in also in this type of occupation related to retail, healthcare, industry, and so on. We are observing two more facts. So there are a lot of investment in research, I mean in robotics, autonomous system, and so on. We are seeing also there is a strong collaboration between university and industry in order to develop AI solutions. These are few examples. I could speak for a couple of hours, but I don't want to bother you. But these are few examples on the usage of AI. So I mean, in digital services, so you know the importance of the cybersecurity we can use in the infrastructure. So there is a strong evolution of digital services on the project management. The impact of agile project management techniques are crossing all the sectors. We can speak about logistics, for the capability of analyzing the huge amount of data that are arriving from the industry. It's necessary in order to guarantee to the companies the growth. We could speak about the Internet of Things, the supply chain, so the product management and data analysis skills that are growing very quickly. That because the way of delivering the services are really improved by AI. And last but not least, we are speaking about automation. So we are speaking, as I said, data analysis. So the capability of managing a large volume of data for developing machine learning models, predictive algorithms in order to be able to have a predictive projection, robotics, automation, and so also the programming, because Python, Scala, Java languages now are becoming real essential in all the fields of economical sector.
Thank you very much, Marco. You have got a huge field of coverage that you offered to us today. This is great. I think what we would like to do now is to hear from Adam, who has some points that are probably similar to what Marco has just presented, but also has a different point of view. And without further ado, Adam, please, I'd like to give you the floor and let you present your view on this. Thank you.
Victoria, thank you very much for that. And can I just say to everybody, good morning. It's a real pleasure to be here. I feel very privileged to speak after Marco. Now, let me just check that everybody can see my slides. I don't know if I said on the beginning of the bottom one, remember to say hello to everybody. If I did, it's a good slide. So what I'd like to do myself is Victoria and Marco have set out a situation of ropey economic statistics, labor shortages, and obvious demographics and the impact of AI. So what I'd like to do is look at what the industry is actually doing about that, faced with that situation. And if we take the economic situation first, these are, we survey every year staffing companies around the world. And this year we asked them what their current strategies are faced by some very different economic data, depending on where in the world you are. The answers you can see are what people are doing already in dark blue, what they're going to do if a recession is declared. Obviously, a lot of people are hoping for the best and planning for the worst, and what they're not going to do. And the situation in 2023 at the moment is that people are looking at their client base. They're trying to make sure that they've got a diffuse client base. Obviously, we see a lot of firms where the 80-20 rule works, that 80% of business comes from 20% of clients. So they're trying to get away from that. They're trying to get away from companies that are likely to be recession hit. But on the whole, they're taking gradual action, but no action more than 60%. They're then looking at cutting costs very strongly if there is a recession, limiting hires again very strongly if there is a recession. But I think I agree with you in the introductory Slido poll that we're hoping for the best. But one thing that isn't going to go away, as both Marco and Victoria so ably presented, is the tight labour markets. We're seeing historically tight labour markets. And yeah, they've eased a little over the last 6 months, but they're still at hugely disadvantageous rates. Marco alluded to skills hiring, and this is data from LinkedIn. You can see that 40% of hirers are using skills data. And this seems to be a really big trend in the industry, that skills rather than the old-fashioned resume or CV are the upcoming thing. And obviously, LinkedIn believes that 60% of hirers really find this the very best way of hiring. What else are people doing? Well, immigration obviously is a big factor in many markets. Finding workers around the world, obviously, we're hoping that there's agreements in the UK, for example, that we're trying not to take nurses, for example, from countries that don't have enough nurses. But the demographic question, as Marco alluded to, is huge. And what's really interested in is these are the countries that by 2050 will have the highest birth rates in the world. Have you seen many staffing firms in Nigeria, Ethiopia, Democratic Republic, or Tanzania? Not to a huge extent. Now, I know we've got somebody on the call from Egypt, but these are the places where most people in the world will be born. Huge factor for India, and I see Lahita on the call, that India has now surpassed China as the most growing demographic country in the world. So, immigration is going to be a big factor. I was looking at the medical space yesterday, and Brazil, with 1.6 million nurses, is starting to provide nursing staff around the world. There's also a growing acceptance of contingent workforce. The data we think from our survey is that the market is probably 1 in 5 workers are contingent workers. We think that's going to rise over the next few years to probably 1 in 4. But what the important factor is that it's not just temporary agency staff. It's other temporary workers, it's independent contractors, it's statement of work consultants. And I was absolutely fascinated. I was at dinner of healthcare providers yesterday, and we're seeing outcome-based workers in the healthcare space. You actually can hire in a team to do operations, and the outcome that they will guarantee is the number of operations they're going to do. Remote work's also here to stay. Now, temporary workers love working remotely. As you can see, 61% of them would really jump at the chance of being remote. The interesting factor is, though, that only 10% of workers, we reckon, on a temporary basis are working remotely. So if organizations are trying to attract workers, question is, how can they make their work remote? Other areas of interest are how the industry, and Thomas, you asked the question, how is the industry addressing all of these points? Well, one of the ways that they're addressing it is by providing training. If you don't have the skills in-house, you might adopt a recruit, train, and deploy model. RM.com is a healthcare business. It's absolutely fascinating. You've got the details on the screen. Well worth having a look afterwards. They're actually training healthcare professionals. And this is good because temporary workers absolutely love training. As you can see, 90% of them want more training, and it's a great way to attract people to the industry. Almost last but not quite least, people are also competing on pay cycles. Temporary workers really love to be paid, and as paid as quickly as possible. And yet, as an industry, we tend to delay the payment of workers. Now, again, there may be an argument that pay on the day isn't actually suitable for that many people. But here's an idea for you. What about paying quicker near the holiday period or Christmas or other times when people actually really need the money as quickly as possible? So a flexibility in pay rates may also be one way that the industry can attract more workers. And you can see the data there from the United States. Most last but not quite least, we're also seeing the industry adopting temporary staffing platforms, a use of technology that I think is going to be increasing like topsy, as we'll see on the next slide. And what is a temporary staffing platform? I think the definition here will give you a good idea of that. The interesting thing is that we're seeing a coalition of traditional staffing firms who've generally had office accommodation, and the pure platforms like Upworks and Fivers coalescing around something that we're calling temporary staffing platforms that are increasingly popular. And AI Healthcare, who you can see on the screen, now has a turnover, or last year had a turnover of $11 billion based purely around providing a temporary staffing platform for mostly nurses. Just reinforces the point. In 2021, we saw a growth rate for temporary staffing platforms of 59%. Now, it's still a small market as compared to the overall staffing market at 21 billion. But traditional temporary staffing, we thought in that year grew by 11%. So there's no doubt about where the future is going to be. And this just gives you an idea of the massive expansion of different temporary platform specializations around different sectors and industries. Last but not least, as Marco was saying, AI is very definitely here. Now, we've all heard of ChatGPT, and I would suggest that it's slightly old technology, but whoever's in the marketing department there is absolutely fantastic. And I'm not quite sure that where we are on here, but I wouldn't be suspect if we're not far from the peak of inflated expectations. But AI is here to stay and is going to be enormously important. This is data for the number of jobs that are going to be lost through not just AI, but all automation. And PwC thinks that by the mid-2030s, 30% of jobs may be automated. And that's particularly going to affect male employees with low or medium education. But the great news is, as Marco showed us, there's going to be a vast number of new jobs. There's already jobs with descriptions that are just completely new to us. So there's bad news, but there's also some very good news coming down the line. AI has already been massively adopted by the staffing industry. These are just some of the platforms or software providers in the industry who are taking on board AI. And it's interesting, 43% of current software providers reckon that they have some degree of AI. For those of you who are particularly interested in this area, it's interesting to see that LinkedIn has already provided an AI component. So if you're writing to a candidate, say, the platform will actually suggest better ways of accessing or helping that candidate. So final thought, are we going to be killed by the robots? I hope not. There are some people who think that we are, and it reminds me not to go on Twitter because it scares the life out of me. But this is my closing thought. I don't think that we're going to be put out of work by the machines, but I do think that if you're not using AI, you really need to, because it's the person with the AI skills who maintain your job. And with that, I'll pass back to you, Victoria.
Thank you so much, Adam, and thank you again, Marco. These have been very interesting presentations. You have covered a lot of ground on the lack of opportunity for the new jobs. You have also touched upon the opportunities, how to improve the situation with expanding the pool of labor by tapping into the yet untapped territory. But also we are looking at improvement in digitalization and artificial intelligence that helps automate a lot of processes. We also see a different angle on this issue, that the biggest growth in population is going to happen in the countries where temporary work is actually not yet so much present, and employment agencies are not yet as functional as they are in other parts of the world. So this is a very interesting puzzle to solve. I think, Denis, this is something we have to discuss, I think, at length. We basically see that the evolution of technology and the evolution of also the demands of the labor market participants are changing. So all this creates a very, very interesting picture. Now, what I would like to do is to see how well you have been listening to our speakers, and invite you to say one word. Again, by using the Slido, please pull out your telephones and let us know in one word, what do you think is going to be the defining trend for labor markets in 2024? Just one word. Maybe you want to do 2 words, that probably is also possible. Let's have a word cloud of impressions that you have on what is going to be the defining trend. That would be very interesting. Everyone is invited. Uncertainty. Oh. I think speakers are also invited to participate if they want. Yeah, economic migration. I agree. Soft skills. Agility. Yes, I agree. Agility is probably a very important feature that, you know, it's a trait that we need to all develop to be able to navigate the uncertainty that seems to be the biggest word so far on the screen. All right. But also healthcare. Okay, it's probably very relevant for some markets, for staffing world, definitely. Yeah, flexibility and agility. I think they are both an AI. Yeah, they're all very relevant. Great. Well, we give it another 30 seconds so that a little more people can participate in our quick Slido. And then we will move on to question and answers. So prepare your questions and shoot them through the chat so we can pose them directly to our speakers before the webinar is over, so you have your answer. All right, so flexibility in the world of uncertainty can be challenging, but also brings a lot of opportunity. Do you agree with me? Artificial intelligence, yes. Diversity and skills first hiring, absolutely. All right, thank you very much. I think this is very interesting. We see uncertainty and flexibility are really taking center stage. This is probably a very good way of defining it. So let's move on to question and answers. Gentlemen, we have spoken in very global terms about the situation that is waiting for us in 2024. Could we zoom in a little more into specific countries? We had a few questions before the webinar on a little more insight on the European countries such as Germany, Italy, France, but also further away regions, for example, South Africa or Brazil. Would you be able to give a few insights on what do you see in these countries?
Sorry, I'll start if I may.
Please.
So I think next year, touch wood, should be better than this year. We've seen pretty anemic growth throughout Europe, looking specifically at the countries that you're talking about. France, we think there'll be 0% growth this year, same with Italy. Germany actually is a high point, 9% growth, and that's on the back of the fact that there's full order books, but the German economy has been so difficult with the Ukrainian war and the energy shock that it's bouncing back when the brakes are taken off. UK slightly better than France and Italy at 2%, 2% growth. Next year, we've got to, I'm just about to start our forecast process. So bear in mind, all of these may change in our webinar at the beginning of November, but we reckon France 3% growth, Germany 7%, which looks quite attractive compared to everything else, Italy 2% and the UK 3%. So things are going in the right way. And one of the arguments that we've always had at SIA is if you've got a mix of, say, 30% permanent recruitment and 70% temporary staffing, it's a great way to even out every economy. You mentioned Latin America. I can't speak to Brazil and the other Latin American countries. We think around about zero, some couple +1, couple -1 for this year. Again, slightly better next year, as long as there's no major shocks. I don't know if anybody's looking at the Chinese property market or the Ukrainian war at the moment, but there is a potential for negative downturn. Africa, you've got 70% youth unemployment in South Africa, and it's a very rocky situation in the country at the moment. So we're very tentative about South Africa. But long term, if we're talking about Africa, as I think my slide in demography showed, there is such huge potential that I think don't underestimate it as a market with enormous opportunities. It's not quite temporary agency staffing, but it's been very interesting to see the growth of outsourcing in South Africa recently.
Yes, definitely a lot of opportunities for growth, of course, while navigating through the challenging and uncertain times. Well, we've got more questions here in our chat. Let's address the first one that came in. So is an evolving market recruiting in staffing firms adopting new tactics and businesses development strategies? Do you have any specific examples? Adam, I think this is a question for you, probably.
I hope I've answered that in my presentation.
Yes.
If you look at things like pay on the day, if you look at things like training, and again, have a look at rm.com. If you look at platform work, yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. The fantastic thing about the industry is how it evolves to help workers. And I think there's bags of evidence of that, and as I hope I've shown.
Thank you. Marco, do you have anything to add to these comments?
No, as you know, we have a different point of view than only the staffing agency market. So we are observing that a lot of organizations, a lot of companies have understood that in these days, in this labor market that is always quickly changing, is necessary to have to use a data-driven approach in order to have a real understanding on the labor market. So this is an important consideration that obviously it's from our point of view, but using or observing the labor market, understand the labor market, because we are speaking about some issues, some problems, but nowadays, and perhaps we don't have the crystal balls, so we are not able to understand. We can predict, we can have a general idea on what's going on next year, in next years, but we don't have the crystal ball, I repeat. So it's to have to use to use the data, have a data-driven approach. So
absolutely. And actually, one of the questions we received before the webinar actually fits very well in what you're trying to say about, the specific indicator that we have not used that could help us get a better understanding of the evolution and development. So what would this be for you? Which data do you think we should track specifically?
But according to my experience, we are nowadays we are in a skill-based economy. So then I work with a lot of companies that they are not speaking. They are not speaking about occupation, job titles, education level. I'm searching for an engineer. No, I'm searching with for a person with or a group of people, a team. A specific set of skills, and they don't care about the education level, the job title, or whatever. So I think that we are. This is the direction that we are. The labor market in which the labor market is changing. So it's the importance, the relevance of skill. It's mandatory. We have been working since several years also with some African countries or in the East, or also we have been working with the Ukrainian labor market ministry, and they are watching to the labor market in terms of skills. So it's an important fact, I think.
So they have already jumped into this new philosophy of looking at skills-based economy to be able to fill in the job spaces.
Yes, I was surprised because I was asked, we were asked to work with the Ukrainian labor market ministry last years. What was the specific topic in which we were involved in? The green skills and the green occupation in Ukraine. But I was surprised because I thought that they had bigger problem than the green economy, but they are thinking to the future. So they are thinking to the green occupation, green skills in Ukraine. So it's
making a
important.
leap. Yes, they're making a leap forward. Okay,
Yeah.
we have another question from our managing director, Denis, who says that labor market uncertainty makes workforce planning increasingly complicated. What is your view? How can the staffing industry support companies to adapt?
If I can take that, I think that is the wonderful thing about the staffing market. We have a lovely diagram, and I'm afraid I don't have it to put it up on the screen, but effectively, that is what temporary labor is there for. It is to ease out the uncertainty for organizations that are hiring. So in good times, they may hire permanent staff, but in uncertain times, temporary agency workers can provide a wonderful resource to even out the uncertainty by being brought in or not, as the case may be, depending on the economic circumstances.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we need to go in step with the economic development and see how we can play a good role in supporting the economy. All right. I think so far we've answered all the questions. Maybe I just have missed one. Does this dynamic and fast changing landscape make it easier to sell recruitment and staffing as a career choice? What's your view?
Marco, I'll leave that to you.
It's a question I really believe that it's because but also an opportunity, because as you mentioned before, this important market like Nigeria or whatever, it could be also an important factor for you, because we are observing in the online job vacancies that the companies are searching for talent wherever they are. So if I'm looking for an engineer here in Italy, I'm happy to find the perfect engineer, also if he lives in Nigeria. Who care about it? So this is an opportunity for you. And I really believe that the staffing agencies could be an important player in this market, because how can meet an engineer in Nigeria? Probably because I am used to work with a staffing, my preferred staffing agencies, because otherwise I can how can find those talent for my company.
Yeah, using online platform is a big game changer for some businesses, for sure. Well, I think we've had a wonderful discussion. I thank you very much, Adam and Marco, for having shared your insights and for giving us the sneak peek into what is coming in 2024. Is clearly a lot of uncertainty, but also a lot of opportunity. And Adam, one thing I picked up from what you said is that we need to be flexible, not only in terms of hiring people, but also in terms of the frequency of payment. So I think this, flexibility of paying more frequently in the calendar bottlenecks, so to speak, I think it's a very interesting concept that maybe some of the staffing firms represented today on the call can pick up on. We also heard that we are in lockstep with the evolution in technology and in artificial intelligence, and we really have to ride this wave and make it work for everyone rather than see it as an obstacle or as a threat to our work. Now, I think this has been extremely enriching and interesting. As mentioned already in the chat, all the material that we have shared with you today will be shared with you after the call. So you will not lose anything, don't worry. And I'd like to announce that the next webinars are going to happen on the 26th of October, 2023. Please mark your agendas. We will meet and greet our WEC new presidential team. This is going to be a very interesting and I'm sure very inspiring conversation. And the one after will be on the 22nd of November, where we will discuss the WEC regulatory report. And with that, I am happy to finish on time, and I wish you a very nice day, and till next time. Bye.
Bye. Nice.
Bye bye.